Hi, everyone. Welcome to Cornerstone Connections. Wayne Lucas here. We are on Straight Talk, Sex, Love, and Marriage. It's our fifth session in this. And this is a great one if you want maybe your teenagers or preteens to maybe listen in on this one. Because I want to talk about preparation for marriage. Just take a few minutes because this is, I think, really quite important. Especially when it comes to the process of, we refer to it as dating, that hooking up, or how do we find that right person. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And it comes down on a time in which 1 in 2 marriages today are failing. And of those that continue to remain married, statistics are telling me that half of them say they are unhappily married. Now, that's just those that have gone through marriage, let alone those who maybe are just living together, or maybe not even living together, just living their lives without maybe any type of commitment to someone else. And so I want to talk about this. And again, I follow through with a number of other points I've shared throughout my previous talks on sex, love, and marriage. But I want to just dive in right here. There's a resource I was looking at, and it says regarding dating that dating burst upon the scene on the heels of the women's rights movement, the growth of city life, less modest clothing, and the decline of strong parental authority. Now, that's from a secular source. There's a number of problems with dating. And I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. I think we just have to talk about it. This is a conversation piece. Let me share some deep concerns. Number one, dating dilutes parental involvement. Defined in our culture, it's a boy and a girl concept, cultivating an interest in each other in their times when they are alone. Now that becomes a bit of the problem. So what happens when a parent becomes maybe concerned? Parent becomes concerned with what's happening, what they're seeing. But frequently, in our culture anyway, when a boy and girl date, it's kind of like, none of your business, mom and dad, and it's off limits. And that is a mistake, because it needs to be. This is one of the most important decisions they'll ever make. And they're making it at a very difficult juncture of their life. They need parental or certainly adult involvement in that. So it dilutes parental involvement. And secondly, problem with dating, it exposes young people to serious dangers. I mean, think about it. First of all, the threat to their purity. Someone said, so you don't trust your son or daughter? I mean, you have to trust them at some point, right? Well, I look at it this way. Could I trust myself at that age? When I was a teenager, my flesh was so strong, and I did not have a grid of experience to help navigate through that. And peer pressure was through the ceiling. So how well did I trust myself at that time? So when the question is asked, do you not trust your son or daughter? I don't know if that's a fair question to ask them, because you put them alone with a handsome girl or a handsome guy or a beautiful girl. I mean, it's flesh versus flesh. Do you really want to trust that? Even as adults, do we trust it? Studies relate that 1 in 4 girls in post-education institutions experience date rape. 25% of our girls. I just want to ask the question, how could that have been different if mom or dad were present? I guarantee it would have been different. So it's a threat to purity. I want to share another one. It's a threat to emotional stability. By its very nature, dating promotes feelings of competition, rejection, comparison. And that just is it subsequently brings low self-esteem. It assaults the image of those who are involved, and it can be a killer. How many times? Those who've fallen into deep depression and maybe even suicidal situations from on the heels of a dating relationship. Number 4, it threatens your child's spiritual growth. Adolescence, a time where the trajectory of their spiritual growth needs to have the needle pointing in the right direction. I mean, that's the time where they're stepping out into independence. Dating tends to redirect that interest needle. We become consumed with some of the wrong things. I mean, listen to a bunch of young girls talking. It's boys, 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 or guys together talking in comparison about girls. The needles get thrown in the wrong direction at a time where they need to be making some important decisions in their lives spiritually. Number 5, it threatens their spiritual fellowship with others. And I've seen this over and over again in the church setting, particularly. A guy dates a girl in the youth group, which follows segregation. All of a sudden, they're pairing off, and no longer are the others able to enter into that space. And there's competition, and there's a threat involved, and people don't know how to relate to them. And so youth groups have put sometimes just a no dating policy just because it messes up a youth group. Well, it messes up the peers that kids so much need to be involved in during that period of time of their life, and it threatens the spiritual fellowship. Number 6, dating threatens the child's future happiness and threatens a strong marriage. If making out, hooking up, and all that kind of stuff, if that follows with regret, then it threatens a lot of stuff. It threatens their ability to make right decisions, their ability to make competent decisions, and certainly if it leads to marriage, or if indeed it leads to more than just a very casual relationship in the context of other peers, then it creates a number of follow-up issues. Number 7, dating involves deceitfulness. A boy, or a girl for that matter, can be absolutely disrespectful to their mother. All of a sudden their date shows up, all smiles and looking great. It creates a false front. So it doesn't allow the other person to really see the person in the framework of their family environment. I want to share a biblical alternative. You say, so what do we do? Well, I think there needs to be parental or guardian involvement. And often we look at it more in the courting aspect. And I think courting with parental involvement is the healthy way. It's the biblical way, actually, in looking for the person God wants us to spend the rest of our life with. It's where a young man, a young woman who pursue interest in each other with active parental approval, involvement, and guidance. Comes from the ancient word betrothal. It used to be a word I used in my early part of weddings, where you now betrothed to one another. Be means to cause to come to pass, and troth means trust in marriage. We bring process to come to pass a trust towards marriage. It's the healthier way. It's the biblical way. Another phrase is espousal. And the key here is active parental involvement, where the couple is not breaking off alone, because that all works itself out later. It's where they grow in community as a couple, knowing each other in the context of others. We see this biblically with Abraham and how that there was that involvement in his life and future mate selection. We see that in his son Isaac and then his son Jacob. Jesus made reference to this in Matthew 22 when a king was preparing a wedding banquet for his son. You see the involvement there. Paul, the apostle, talks about how the father gives his daughter away in 1 Corinthians 7. Again, you see this betrothal, this courtship process of involvement. Involves parental participation in the selection of mate. Sharing key characteristics are important as you talk through this with your children. Helping to understand family history, family value. This is who we are. This is where we come from. This is our bents and tendencies, character traits. We talk about that, and we begin to talk about that when it comes to our marriage selection. In the context of groups, we observe and we could follow up. So if the parents are not involved, they don't know how to follow up. They don't know much of what's going on. But when parents are involved, then they're able to see what's taking place and then talk about it later. Parent-child mentorship on how to treat your mate. So observation and then that type of coaching can take place. Working through fleshly desires, stories of their stories when they share their situations and how that might help you in your situation. Dealing with flirting, countercultural values that we face today. Walking through all that with the involvement of parents. It is really the better way. And we have to do something to stem the tide where there is huge hurt upon our adolescent generation and then on into those who are getting married. I didn't take the time of those who are maybe older and you're doing online dating. I caution that has to move into the place where you need to see family. You need to do in-person situations over protracted periods of time in multiple circumstances and situations. Like it can't be, I've heard some good, I've heard more bad, and been involved in that and been involved in just devastating where it's been online dating, courtship, and getting together and hooking up. There needs to, again, community involvement, spiritual community is the healthiest way to be able to help towards a healthy. It's not a guarantee, but it certainly puts some strong parameters on a relationship that is for life. I hope this has been helpful. I believe we are living in times that we really need to address these and talk about them. So feel free to do that if you want to get a hold of us. Glad to do so. AuroraCornerstone.ca. Look us up on the web. Looking forward to talking to you again. God bless.